guidebook here about working in groups and active listening and empathy, and there's tons of stuff, lots of stuff to this set. But I feel like it's not really being taught. It's just being, here you work in a group. And so I am wondering kind of how you're helping the teachers to help the kids who this doesn't come naturally to figure out how to do these things and how to build those skills, which are obviously going to be so important in their lives and careers as well as their future education in MCPS. And conversely, the other angle in the curriculum 2.0 that I wanted to comment on is the math standards. And my son and a lot of other kids who are in the Asperger area of autism spectrum are good at math. And I understand that there had been a lot of push for math acceleration and that maybe went too far, but it seems like it swung back too far the other direction in my observation. They're doing tens and ones units for 8 weeks in a row when he wants to do multiplication. And the report cards aren't even allowed to indicate that they may be advanced. They're all proficient because the teachers don't have any way to assess that they're above grade level or provide them any kind of enrichment or acceleration. So I feel like he's being taught stuff he already knows and not taught other stuff he needs help with, even though they're both right here in the curriculum.
So let me talk generally about it because I don't know your son and all that. I guess I'll break our rule immediately and answer your questions. But that's all right. I can go with the flow. So the first is around what we're doing in Support Curriculum 2.0, right? So an enormous amount of professional development is being given to teachers, and it's never enough. You can never do enough people, which is one of the reasons why we've been so keen on the professional learning community approach, which is so that they can be pooling their knowledge, and we spent a lot of time on it. Last year, I asked our folks to institute an assessment of the schools to see where we were, because we went from second grade to third grade, and I wanted to make sure that we could differentiate our support. So we did a really thorough assessment of our schools, and we're able to differentiate our supports accordingly and give them help, the ones that need it. I don't specifically know what's going on at Bell and all that. And I do know that some schools are flying high, doing great, gung-ho. Some schools are struggling and saying, it's working, but we're having a couple issues, and some schools are struggling a little more. Like Deputies have the information about exactly which schools are happening where. And I also know, quite frankly, that one of the great challenges of the world we're in right now, and quite frankly, I'm just going to get on my soapbox for a brief second here, but we're being asked to do two things at once right now. We're being asked to continue to prepare for, or we're still being measured by, I should say, we're still being measured by the old testing regime, while we're being asked to prepare for a completely new way of assessing kids' knowledge and understanding, and it requires a completely different approach to teaching as well. And I think that my message to teachers and administrators that I don't care about the MSA anymore, I don't care about adequate yearly progress, I don't care about no child left behind. It resonates, but at the same time, people feel like, but we know the test score is going to come out, so we still have to do some of that stuff. And I don't know that that's a Bell. Just in general, I think it's hard for folks in some ways because of the old accountability that still exists. And it takes time to learn something new, right? But we have excellent, wonderful teachers who, even if they're doing what they always did, are still serving our kids. So those are some of the ways we're supporting our teachers. Let me talk about math. The average time, this is a study I read about it's actually longer now, maybe about 8, 9 years ago. The average time an Asian student spends on a math problem is about 8, 9 minutes. Average time an American student spends about 30 seconds, right? In the countries that are graduating kids with more advanced mathematics skills, right? Oftentimes the class does one problem for the entire day. One problem that they're focusing, and they go really, really deep. The definition of rigor for us is how many complex procedural problems can you do and how quickly can you do them. and it's about computation and arithmetic, quite frankly. And math in this country has always been pretty much designed for a few kids to get it. As long as a few kids get it, then that's okay. We're now recognizing that's not enough. I won't go into all of the history and the details because there's been a math work group and all that. I'll tell you what my assessment is and what we're doing going forward. So there was definitely a push to accelerate a lot of kids for good reason, right? A lot of kids were being held back. Black kids, brown kids, right? Poor kids were being held out of high-level classes in many ways. So there's a push to accelerate. And many kids who have been accelerated have done very well. Many of them have not, right? We've heard from teachers, we've heard from others, kids are coming to me having taken geometry in 7th grade, and they have no number sense. They have no number sense. Math is also one of the greatest sorting mechanisms in American education, and differentiates people very quickly and very early on. And it is also, and I promise I won't go too long about math, but let's get started. It also is very subject to a very fixed mindset. Have any of you ever heard or said, "Oh, I'm a math person," or "I'm not a math person," right? "Oh, well, he's," they told me when I was, "You're not a math person, don't worry about it," right? Things like that. So it's the idea that math is something you either can do or you can't. You're either a math person or you're not. There's a great book by Carol Dweck on mindsets, right? The idea that you can learn, we can have a fixed mindset about something, but you can actually learn. This is the social emotional piece, right? You can actually, if you have a growth mindset, you can learn how to do something that may have been, you may have thought was very hard, but in fact, you can learn how to do it if you just have the right mindset. One really interesting aspect of Dweck's research was on kids and mathematics, right? And the notion of being bored. I am not suggesting this of your son Isaac, right? I'm not suggesting this. But she did some really interesting research on this, right? And what's happening was kids who had always done really well in computation, right? How quickly can you do the procedures, right? Adding, multiplying, whatever, how quickly do you know your facts, right? Kids who had always done really well on that in pre-K, in kindergarten, who are on their parents' iPads, doing everything quickly, right? Then when they're asked to stop and explain it, all of a sudden, boom, they don't know how they got the answer. They may know the trick. They may know the computation. And anybody, right, when anybody take the SATs in here, did you learn the tricks? Like from Princeton, like you learn a lot of tricks, right? But did you really know the concepts? When asked to explain the concepts, kids weren't able to do it. And then what they do is they say, well, I already did that. I already did the number line in pre-K, so I'm bored, right? And the parents, many of them, and again, I'm making some broad generalizations, I'm reflecting on the research, then the parents will say, well, they don't understand it either, because if you haven't seen what math looks like today, what it really means to not do computations, but to apply your knowledge and really understand the concepts behind it, they say, well, this doesn't look right. My kid was doing this in pre-K, they could do it, so they should be doing something else. That's the struggle we're in right now, to help people understand it. The current approach we have to math in Curriculum 2.0 offers opportunities for acceleration. Those who are, there is in the curriculum itself, there are opportunities for enrichment and there are opportunities for acceleration. And I was just with principals today talking about this issue, and each of them said, yeah, that it's pretty clear that they're able to do things in their building that meets the needs of their kids as long as they're also following the curriculum. So it might be that there's something going on at your school where the principal or the teachers don't understand the curriculum, we need additional help, and we can follow up on that. But there's absolutely opportunities for acceleration within that curriculum, and there's also opportunities for enrichment to go deeper on the concepts. That was a long answer to a question, but I figured the math thing might come up also, so I might as well try to approach it now.
I have a great favor to ask. Why don't we limit to one question so we can get to as many questions as possible?
I know like part A, part B.
Okay,